Welcome to Arthur's online autism channel. I am Arthur Riley and I am on the autism spectrum. I want to thank everyone who took the time to view my channel last month. I shared my life experiences being on the autism spectrum, along with my mother helping me overcome many obstacles to where I am now. Today, my topic will be a man with autism, such as me, sharing ideas on how to prevent escalations between autism and police/slash security officers. What prompted me to pick this topic was I've heard talk over many years on how police need more training on autism. Right now, all I'm going to say is it can't hurt. However, there are other ways which to help prevent escalations or at least reduce them. So I will discuss my personal experiences, police and security officers, along with why I believe police and security stop individuals on the spectrum, or at least approach them. And I will share research or information I've done, some ideas on how to prevent or reduce escalations. Before I go any further, just want to mention, in case you hear something you disagree with, I'm only sharing information from my personal perspective and experiences along with the research I have done. I will start off by mentioning my personal experiences as police/slash security officers. Was at a young age, I always learned by my mother to have respect for authority, especially the police. However, a couple of times in my early 20s, I was questioned by officers due to the fact that my remaining autistic traits were noticeable. First one happened when I was 20 years old on my way home from work. It was late at night, and on my way home, I noticed a female officer approximately 50 feet away from me. I started getting concerned. I had a habit of acting nervous when I felt uncomfortable. Obviously, the officer picked up on it because the next thing I remember, she flashed her flashlight toward me. So I knew I was being stopped. At first, I thought, oh no, what did I do now? So in the beginning, I could feel my adrenaline inside me pumping 1,000 miles an hour. However, I convinced myself, kept my cool, cooperated, and respectful, everything would be okay. And sure enough, it was. As soon as I approached her, she was real pleasant, said, how you doing? The reason why I stopped you because you looked lost or nervous. I said, nope, I'm on my way home from work. I pointed to where I worked, and I lived around the corner. So she said, have a good night, sir. That was it. The next one happened about several months ago in San Francisco. I took a day trip up there, and in the middle of the afternoon, I was walking on Pier 39. Noticed a police or maybe a security officer. It was hard for me to tell because I wasn't from the area. So, anyway, he did have a badge and uniform. So I got concerned. So, sure enough, he noticed it because the next thing I remembered, he went to me and said, so again, I thought, oh no, what did I do now? I could feel my adrenaline once again going 1,000 miles an hour. So again, I convinced myself if I kept my composure, cooperated, been respectful, everything would have been fine. And once again, it was. As soon as I approached him, he asked me, "Why are you so nervous?" I thought, well, I told him the way he looked at me, I thought I did something wrong. He says, "Nope, you're fine. Don't be so nervous." And that was it. I would say each interaction maybe lasted 1 minute at the most, probably not even that long. However, I realized if I did not cooperate, started arguing, and got agitated, each outcome would have been entirely different. When mom found out about them later, she kindly said, "Arthur, I'm sorry this happened, but you have to understand the point of view of the police officers who have very tough jobs. They have to be on the lookout for anything that looks suspicious." And then when I was learning to drive or started driving, one advice she gave me is if I ever got pulled over is to keep my composure. I'll never forget the quote she made. It gets more expensive every time you open your mouth. Sadly, so many people learn the hard way. And I learned, mom told me over the years, never to argue with the police, ever. And over the years, I met many people in law enforcement, which gave me a better perspective of their point of view. So now I will discuss a traumatic experience I had with security in Las Vegas many years ago. When this happened, I was 26 at the time, and a particular night, it was during New Year's Eve weekend, which place was really busy. It's one of the busiest times of the year in Las Vegas. So, since I couldn't find an open table, I decided to leave, come back later when it wasn't so busy. So, on my way out there, I noticed a TV set, an old fashioned type, bolted to the ceiling above the poker area where there's live poker going on. So, I noticed that it showed football highlights, which caught my interest. I decided to watch the TV, and about 5 minutes later, I was approached by a security officer. So when he asked for my ID, at first I thought, oh, no big deal. He just wanted to make sure I was old enough to be in there. So when he looked at it, he said, "Haven't I seen you before?" I thought, hmm. So I looked at him, and sure enough, he ID'd me the week before because I was there on a 2 week vacation. Well, the previous week, nothing happened. But this particular time, he said, "Do me a favor. Why don't you take off for the rest of the night?" I was shocked to my toes. I swear my eyes got this big. I went, "What did I do?" He says, "Well, you're just standing there doing nothing." What? He yelled, "Don't argue with me." Situation got much worse from there. I got angry. Fortunately, so did he. So I walked out of the place grumbling just angrily out loud. He obviously heard me because as soon as I reached the sidewalk out by the street, I could hear him yelling toward me, "What's your problem, man?" However, I ignored him and kept walking. However, I was so angry, I was determined to file a formal complaint against him. I made a U turn, walked right back into the casino, and marched right to the security desk, talked to another security guard, expressed my problem. So he radioed over his boss, which unfortunately turned out to be the same guy that asked me to leave in the first place. So he and this other guard calling me to the security office or holding room. And right outside the door, they had me searched. I had to go in the holding room. I had to empty all my pockets. They took my picture, which meant I was formally 86 from the casino or banned. And they asked me if I had a criminal record. I said, no. They didn't believe it, of course. So as soon as they called the police or the authorities, they were shocked to find out I did not have a record or a warrant. Worst yet was they ridiculed me, humiliated, and cursed at me, which I felt was totally uncalled for. I was there about 15 minutes before they released me. However, no apology was offered. So about an hour and a half later, I was in our hotel room. Mom finally arrived. She was mortified when I explained to her what happened. So our plan was the next morning, speak with security at a more reputable casino for advice. Sadly, since I had no witnesses, I had no case. However, she advised me to write a letter to the chief of security above this supervisor and a copy to the owner. And several hours later, I felt like I needed more answers. So I spoke to security in another casino. I remembered he was a real nice young man. Really appreciated him taking the time to talk to me and his tactfulness. So I took the time to explain what happened. He said, casinos are private property and they do not have to have a reason to ask you to leave. So the lessons I learned from that were it never pays to argue with security, even if they're wrong. If I had it to do all over again, I would have cooperated, bit the bullet, left quietly, and returned the next day if I wanted to make a formal complaint. I will never forget the quote from my mom. Well, you learned a valuable lesson. And she reminded me of signs that all of us have read in restaurants many times throughout our lives, stating, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. So as soon as we got home, Mom helped me write this long letter explaining what happened. I explained the fact that I was misjudged due to the fact that my background was special needs. I acknowledged the fact that they have to be on the lookout for suspicious activity. I understood that. Plus, I admitted I shouldn't have walked back in after I was asked to leave. However, I just wanted to know what they thought I did. Felt the situation was badly mishandled. So we got the letter off about a week or two later. We got a response, but not the kind we were hoping for. This type of a form letter saying, thank you for writing to us. Please be assured it will be investigated fully and dealt with accordingly. Sadly, no apology or explanation was offered of why I was asked to leave in the first place. Funny part of that whole letter was it was poorly written by the manager. Half a page worth with 6 spelling and grammatical errors. So he made a copy of the letter, circled all the errors in red, and sent it back to them. That was one way to get rid of all the anger, or for both of us. The emotional agony lasted about several months, 5 or 6. So I look back, and once again, if I cooperated with security that night, left quietly, and waited till the next day to come back and complain, escalation would have been avoided. I'm not excusing the bad behavior which I felt security displayed toward me then. Once again, escalation would have been prevented. Why do I believe security or police officers approach individuals on the spectrum? Well, there's two reasons that come to my mind right off the bat. First is behaviors noticed by police/slash security officers themselves. The other one is behaviors noticed by other people. They get suspicious, so they call the police. As a result, police and security approach individuals on the spectrum to follow up on complaints made by others. I know it's hurtful for me being on the spectrum, being misjudged, or someone that doesn't understand. On the other hand, I know one thing: police get complaints, they have to follow up. There's no way around it. Sadly, many individuals on the spectrum get confused or do not understand they're approached by police, which sadly can result to escalations. In fact, I remembered about 15 years ago, it was a store around the Fresno area, which was patronized or frequented by young men on the spectrum. Very high functioning. It was well liked by everybody. In fact, everyone that knew him just loved him to pieces. However, one day he went to that same store where none of the employees that knew him worked that days. So that particular day, once again, nobody knew him. Sadly, someone did not understand him, got suspicious, and called the police. I do not know how the interaction happened. Sadly, this officer ended up tasering this young man on the spectrum. And for me to be on the spectrum, to hear a story like that is gut wrenching to say the least. However, all the employees that knew him found out about it and evidently told the police about his background with autism. The officer said, "Someone explained that to me. It would have been very helpful." So I was not there. I didn't see a video of what happened. But some guesses I have was either did not understand what he's supposed to do when an officer approached him, or he got so frightened to the point where he froze to the point he could not speak, which I've heard of happening to many on the spectrum. So I will cover ideas on how to prevent escalations or unpleasant experiences or traumatic. One is medic alert bracelets along with other ID bracelets cards, especially for individuals who are nonverbal. I started researching. In fact, anybody have time, Google autism ID bracelets. You would be amazed at all the types of different bracelets there are out there. Because I sure was. Different colors, some have different logos that kids might like. Someone recommended, however, bracelet is absolutely necessary. Have them wear one, or he or she, whatever's more appropriate or applicable, the type that they cannot remove, because I hear some children like to remove those bracelets who do not like to wear them. In fact, I have 4 years experience as a one-on-one behavior therapist for children with autism. I remember two who are nonverbal wore medic alert bracelets. They could have ID cards registered with the police department. They could have it in their wallets or wear a lanyard in plain sight. If I had my druthers, I would have them wearing bracelets or a lanyard, something in plain sight in case they get approached by police. So I worry about individuals on the spectrum when they're approached by police reaching for their pocket for something. One advice I'd give to anyone, including someone on the spectrum, when approached by police, never ever reach or go for your pocket unless instructed to do so by the officer. If, if they allow you to do it very slowly for their safety. And other options are register autism with the local police department. Many cities do that. In fact, I remember a story of a young man with autism. He was either in his early or mid 20s. He liked to roam around the main street with stores and restaurants. I don't know what happened. He evidently or most likely looked through some windows. Someone got suspicious and called the police on him. However, as soon as the police saw him, they knew all about his background with autism. Why? Because his father registered his autism to the police department, which I felt was a very good idea. Another story I'd like to relate was a mother of a young child with autism, I'd say about 8 years old, nonverbal, who had a habit of eloping, just moving away or running off, which is common on the spectrum. So nobody could find him. You can imagine how frantic everybody was, especially mom and dad. And I remember they lived close to a river or lake. Someone suggested check the area by the water. I thought, parents thought the same thing. Someone had the idea of children with autism like to go in the area where there's water. I thought, that's interesting. So they went to the area by the water, and sure enough, there he was. Thankful he was safe. And the policeman strongly suggested to this to have an ID bracelet plus register his autism to the police department in case he gets lost again. Somebody finds him, they'll know exactly who to call or where to return him to. Very good advice. Some other ideas, just schools maybe have field trips to the police department. Years ago, when I was in private school, we had a field trip to the police department. I was about 7 or 8 at the time. I'd say there's about 6 of us all together. And if I remember right, one of my classmates' dad was a policeman. So we all had an awesome time. Really enjoyed it. The officer was so nice showing us around, and each of us got fingerprinted the old fashioned way where we dipped our fingers into the black ink pad and put it on the cards. They used computer. Back then, they still used the old fashioned ink pad. I remember excited I was when I got fingerprinted long before I knew why people got fingerprinted. Then he showed us jail cells. He expressed the fact that this is where we put individuals who misbehave in public or make bad choices. He knew we were special needs. However, he still warned us that we could end up there too if we make bad choices. So I felt this was valuable information. Another idea is having a police officer as a guest speaker. Our private school did one time. I felt it was very helpful, all as kids. Me substituting at high schools, I've noticed each campus has a police officer. I think, why not? For example, why not have a special education teacher invite a police officer to speak to the students? Some other ideas for not only do they train the individuals with autism, however, this program also teaches individuals on the spectrum what to do if they get approached by the police, which I feel is valuable information. Also, a policeman who had a nephew on the spectrum gave advice to individuals on the spectrum, high functioning, who have driver's licenses and actually drive cars like I do. Advice on what to do if they get pulled over by an officer. Again, real valuable information. Oh, and I've seen some parents a few times, or I've seen on the internet the stickers saying autistic child aboard, or one child wearing a seatbelt saying, I have nonverbal autism. I'm not being defiant or non-compliant. Is it applicable? I believe in some cases, but for every case, no. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. When I was 8 or 9, I knew I had autism. I made so much progress. I would not have liked it if my mom put that sticker on our car or had me wear that autism saying on the seatbelt. And chances are she would not have used those signs anyway. I'll never know because that never came up. Knowing mom, I doubt she would have used them. Well, first of all, as long as I could remember, I love getting out of the house and going places, eating out or going to the park, someplace fun, just getting out. I knew if I misbehaved, mom and dad would turn the car over and says, "Oh, we're going home. You're not behaving." I'm 100% sure that that's what they would have done. Plus, I knew when I got in the car with anybody, I must be in my best behavior. So, therefore, no autism sticker was necessary on the car or slogan necessary on my seatbelt. Period. It's a prime example of the fact that one size does not fit all, which I plan to cover in a future presentation. So I'm reviewing what I talked about tonight. Autism training cannot hurt. However, there are many other ways to help prevent escalations or reduce them. Again, I learned at an early age to cooperate when approached by police. However, I learned the hard way when I was 26 to cooperate with security in a casino or anywhere, even if they're wrong. The resources available, such as ID tags, bracelets, registering with the police department, field trips to the police department, having officers as guest speakers, or stickers on the car saying autistic child on board, or wearing the seatbelt, or puzzle pieces. So, my main objective was to supply information on how to reduce escalations. So, any of the parents, if you believe any of those options or resources are right for your children, just look into them. The final decision is yours. I want to thank everyone for attending today. I have two favors. If you like this presentation, please click the like and the subscribe button. My next presentation will be on Las Vegas tips from a man on the autism spectrum, such as me. So I will see you then. Have a great day.